The Kings are still, I think, flawed roster-wise, and I think that's something that Wes Wilcox and Monty McNair need to figure out ASAP, and we'll talk about that. But seeing how they've responded to Doug Christie, to me, shows why, like, hey, you know what? Whether Mike Brown was doing a bad job as the coach or not, they had to make that move.
No, I totally agree. So, I've watched this play out so many times, and we always talk about this really weird thing, this like idea of letting go of the rope, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's this thing that people always talk about is called losing the locker room, right?
Yep.
And I think there's such a misconception about what losing the locker room looks like. I think you can have moments where clearly guys have lost the locker room, where there are groups of players sitting there talking to each other after a game, and you're like, oh, this is bad, and little factions start to form and all that stuff. But losing the locker room doesn't mean like you walk in and everyone's got like a, fire the coach shirt on, or this is horrible, and all they do is talk about how horrible it is. It's not typically what it is. What happens is you're watching a game and you see a team stop playing hard.
Yep.
And then you watch the next game and they get to a certain moment in the game where things get tough and they quit again. They let go of the rope. They you think you're playing tug of war. They let go of the rope and they fall.
Yeah.
Right. And so the whole time you're watching this play out. And in all honesty, for whatever reason, whatever happened here, they stopped listening. They stopped performing for Mike Brown. And that's unfortunately where we got to. Yep. And I really like Mike. I like him as a person. I think Mike's an excellent head coach. This is a guy that took you from 30 wins to 48 and snapped a 16 season, 17-year playoff drought.
Yep.
He's the guy.
Yep.
But just like so many other coaches before, and maybe that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is Sacramento Kings know that they can just let go of the rope and they'll fire their coach.
Yep.
And like I don't know how many I know this is my 10th head coach in 15 years. And so I'm used to it. I saw it coming.
Sure.
And I started hearing about it, like we talked about it on the show last week before we went on our hiatus.
Yeah.
Like after the Indiana game, there were very, very palpable rumors behind the scenes that
loud whispers
that it was coming, that this is happening, right? And then it kind of cooled off, and then all of a sudden they lose to Detroit in such dramatic fashion. Mike went out and lambasted De'Aaron Fox, which again, I whatever he wants to do as a head coach, that's on him.
He treated that Pistons post game like he knew he was out.
He certainly went in and like, okay. So we talked about this, like Mike did something that I thought was really, really interesting. And, I'll use Kenny's cable here. He, during a pregame, he reached into the like at the end of the microphone, there's an XLR cable, like this guy right here. He reached and that XLR cable goes down through a tablecloth and then it hides underneath. So Mike pulled up a bunch of it and he made a loop in it like this. And he had the loop on the table and he said, I need to know, are you in with both feet? Are you in the loop? Are you in or are you out? And he was talking in general terms about his entire team. But I think the problem is when you make that display, and I agree with him saying, are you in 2 feet in? Because if you're 2 feet in, we can fight together. If you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're not fully in.
Yeah.
In all honesty, if 1 foot's out, you're out.
Right.
So I need to know, are you in or are you out? And then when your team goes out and plays, like some of them are out, then it's over.
Yep.
And I, what Mike did there was like, it was a very clear, like visual of whether you're in or you're out. And when everybody watched the game, it's like, okay, you're not in it.
Yeah, man. Watching the way that Detroit game ended was like, oh, they're done. They're done with him.
Yeah.
That was it. I watched that and came away with any other conclusion.
It's super tough because, I don't know if players understand this, but like I'll relate it to like coaching soccer, right? When you're coaching some kids and you watch somebody who's not running full speed and they go down and you're yelling at them, come on, you got to move faster, you got to move faster. Sure. And they come over, man, I was trying my hardest, coach. And it's like, no, you weren't.
Yeah.
Like, what do you mean?
I've seen you trying your
I've seen you run faster. I know you can run faster. Right. You didn't run as fast as, so I'm not sure what you're looking at, what you think I'm looking at, but what I looked at is somebody who wasn't running fast enough. And that's what you saw. You saw a team that had stopped moving at the same pace for their coach, that had they had stopped. I don't want to say stop caring, but the problem I always have is if you're quitting on a coach, you're quitting on yourself and you're quitting on your teammates. Mm-hmm. And that's it. Like as a team, you're quitting.
Yeah. There's a collective, whether it's outspoken or not, mm-hmm. There's a collective looking around the proverbial room and going, we're not going to the playoffs. We're not winning a championship. So like,
this is not good.
You're not going to go try quad. It's like a preseason game. You guys aren't going 100% in the preseason. They're kind of going through the motions. That's what the Kings were doing. Mm-hmm. That's how De'Aaron Fox loses Jaden Ivey, because he's just going through the motions.
That one, very specifically, was one person losing focus. Mm-hmm. But the one person losing focus is the guy that can't lose focus.
Yeah, but on that specific play for sure.
Yeah.
But there were so many other instances throughout that game where you're smoking a lead to a not very good Pistons team. I know we joke about my Pistons. They're my Pistons because I thought, hey, they'll win more than 26.5 games.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to be good. So that was a bad Pistons team that you need to close out. And the fact they didn't, it's because on a play here and a play there and then another play there and another play there were guys not focusing, not moving at 100%. Not being where they needed to be offensively or defensively, not fighting through a screen, whatever. It's just these little things that happen. The margins of error are so small in the NBA. And when players aren't, for whatever reason, maybe they're giving 95%. Mm-hmm. But that extra 5% is the difference between contesting that three and it being an open three. And that is why throughout that collapse against Detroit, culminating in the De'Aaron Fox foul on Jaden Ivey,
yes,
you could just see it happening. As that lead, what was it, 14 points?
Something like that.
As their lead went from whatever it was down to 10, down to 7, down to 5, is like, oh, they're not going to answer this.
I think we were all kind of looking at each other in the media and like, they're not going to lose this game, are they? And you knew it like when it was like at 14 and it got to 12 and you're like, they aren't going to lose this one, are they? Yeah. Like, really? And you saw it start to unfold in like slow motion. Mm-hmm. And I know it's one of those nights where like I do 6 quick thoughts, right? And I had written my 6 quick thoughts and I had a lead of the Kings winning. And, then they didn't. And then so I changed the lead and I changed a couple of things throughout the 6 quick thoughts. But I'm on a time crunch. I've got to get this thing out and run down to go interview the coaches and stuff. And so they came across as too positive because they had won the game. And then they didn't. Mm-hmm. And so you're really frustrated, like what exactly is happening here. But again, I've been through this too many times. We do have All-Star game.
Yeah, I saw that. Small amount of breaking news. Our first fan voting is in. The results of the fan voting are in the first results, I should say. Fan vote, of course, accounts for 50% of a player's All-Star nod. 25% goes to NBA players, and a media panel accounts for the other 25%. That's according to our buddy Mark Spears from Anscape. So the first NBA All-Star fan voting in the front court in the West, Nikola Jokic, number 1. Kevin Durant 2, LeBron James 3. Those are your top 3 fan vote getters. We probably could have guessed that.
Yeah, I think we could probably guess your 5.
Yeah, Anthony Davis 4, Victor Wembanyama 5.
Okay.
Number 6, Alperen Şengün. Excuse me.
Which Şengün has played extremely well, and and he's on the second best team in the Western Conference right now.
Yep. Okay. Next up for Oklahoma City, Jalen Williams.
Mm-hmm. Had a great season so far. He's been very good.
As a front court guy, though?
He's not a guard.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you only have guards in front court.
Andrew Wiggins, of course, comes in at number 8.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
1 spot ahead of Domantas Sabonis.
Domantas Sabonis at number 9, behind Andrew Wiggins. Like, Like, in all honesty, I'm putting Sabonis number 6 in this just because Sabonis had an incredible season.
Yeah, I think that's probably about right.
He's been better than Alper and Şengün, but again, Şengün plays out a better team.
Yeah, Jalen Williams has been awesome as well.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
And then we round out with Jaren Jackson Jr., our favorite.
We love Triple J. Most fraudulent player in the league.
Yeah.
That's what's happened in the front court. Domantas Sabonis in the first fan voting comes in at number 9. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the Western Conference guards. Luka Doncic 2, Steph Curry 3, Kyrie Irving 4. Dallas having 2 of the top 4 players is crazy. Minnesota Anthony Edwards is 5, James Harden 6, Ja Morant 7, then De'Aaron Fox at number 8, ahead of Devin Booker and Norman Powell.
You know what they should do if people want to give De'Aaron Fox a solid? Every time there's an NBA trade rumor with De'Aaron Fox's name in it, just put hashtag All-Star, and he'll actually
really smart.
Jump all the way up to the top of the list within like 3 days.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. That's a really good idea. Surprisingly, Andrew Wiggins being ahead of Domantas Sabonis is not the most egregious thing I'm looking at in the fan voting.
Oh?
And that has nothing to do with my thoughts about either player.
Okay.
But we have in the East, can run down the Eastern Conference real quick and see if you can tell what I'm looking at. I'll give you a hint. It's in the guards.
Yeah.
Where LaMelo Ball is number 1.
Okay.
Donovan Mitchell 2. You found it.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard 3. All right. Jalen Brunson 4. Trae Young 5. Trae Young having a really nice year.
Oh, no. Number 8.
Yeah. No, hang on. Let me get there.
No.
We got Cade Cunningham 6. Tyrese Maxey 7. At number 8, our guy, Jordan Poole. Ahead of Tyler Hero and Derek White. Jordan Poole is having himself a fine little year. Ahead of Derek White. We're talking all-star caliber players. That's what we're doing.
And actually, I'm going to bring it up because it's in the chat right here.
Please.
Also, from Secure and Monty firing, no Tyrese Halliburton in the top 10 in the Eastern Conference.
Well,
wow.
What are you going to do? Jordan Poole this year, by the way, shooting 41% from 3, 43% from the field. The 41% from 3 is a career high. He's scoring a career high 21.7 a night. 4.9 assists, also a career high. They're not having a bad year.
Except for his team has 3 wins, 2 wins, 5.
6. They won again last night.
Oh my gosh. They're rolling.
Yeah, man. Watch out for our Washington Wizards. Yeah, they beat the Bulls by 18.
I'm not claiming our Washington Wizards, but that's okay.
That's fine. So that's what's going on in the look. Here's my thing, because Pro Bowl rosters were announced today too. The 49ers had 4 players: Nick Bosa, George Kittle, Kyle Juszczyk, and Fred Warner. I know that we always say like, wow, this guy was an X-time all-star. To me, it's meaningless when fan voting has this much to do with it. 50%. And I get that's what the league wants. They want the players that fans want to see. They want to give fans an outsized amount of the say in who plays in the game, because they want people tuning in to see their favorite players. I get it. But if we're going to do that, then I'm not citing all-stars as a career feat anymore.
Okay, so the NFL is one thing. The NBA, it's 24 players. It's not like 300 players, and everybody has made an all-star team. And
Mac Jones was a Pro Bowler.
Yeah. It gets a little weird when players opt out. Like at the NBA All-Star Weekend, it is usually like some of the best of the best. There's usually 1 or 2 snubs. They typically play for the Sacramento Kings that get snubbed. It's just like the reality of the situation. De'Aaron Fox is number 8 in voting. He's probably number 7 right now in the NBA in points per game. But his team isn't very good. His team is still struggling and all that stuff. But I think it's tough to compare like even Major League Baseball, because baseball allows every team has to be represented.
Yep.
And that to me is fraudulent, because, like, God bless Brent Rooker, but like if you're not an all-star, you're not an all-star. That's the way it should be. And that's not a dig on him, because I think he's a perfectly good player. But there are much better players out there that are doing things that don't get in just because they have to, basically fill some sort of weird Major League Baseball quota.
Yeah.
So it's odd.
Anyways, that's where NBA fan voting is with All-Star fan voting is. Next update comes a week from today. So we will check back in then.
Yeah.
Hashtag All-Star De'Aaron Fox trade rumors.
Yeah, every time you see a trade rumor, just hashtag it De'Aaron Fox, and then hashtag NBA All-Star. Yeah.
I want to get into the Kings win last night because I thought it was really interesting, but Sam Amick of The Athletic dropped a really interesting piece today. In The Athletic, obviously. Encourage everybody to go check it out. More or less, the point of Sam's piece, I was kind of expecting the postmortem on Mike Brown and the Mike Brown era.
Yeah.
Because that's Sam's bag.
That he is the elite postmortem writer in the league. Yeah. Like breaking down how something happened, whether it's a trade or a firing. But for some reason, I don't think he was given like the behind the scenes as much.
There's not a lot in here from like a new info breaking news standpoint. But it's really interesting how Sam frames Mike Brown's firing versus how it's been framed publicly. He basically says De'Aaron Fox had nothing to do with Mike Brown's firing, which I think anybody with half a brain assumed.
Yeah, but I think the way that the Pistons game played out, the way that Mike went at De'Aaron, it lent itself to people who are on the outside who don't get it, who aren't paying attention, to point fingers at De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
And like, look, I've known De'Aaron since he was 19 years old. De'Aaron is not the type of guy, if he has a problem, he will say it. But he's also not the type of guy who would walk into general manager's office or call an owner and say, I want him gone now. That's not, and De'Aaron has always been a player that wants to be held accountable, that wants to be coached hard. That is who he is. It's how he was raised as a basketball player. He wants that type of like noise. And Mike Brown was supplying plenty of that, especially after De'Aaron's mistake. And so look, De'Aaron did not go. Everything I've heard, he did not go to ownership and say something.
Not to mention, just real quick to add on to everything you just said, De'Aaron's representation with Clutch had met with the Kings not long before that game.
Yes.
Adding more fuel to the fire.
Well, that, and they did not meet with the organization to discuss Mike Brown's future.
Right.
They met with the organization to discuss the lack of talent.
Right.
And the direction of the team moving forward, and whether or not they were going to go get a player to help De'Aaron Fox out so De'Aaron Fox can make the All-Star team and De'Aaron Fox can make All-NBA so De'Aaron Fox can get his money. And like, look, that's what they were there for, to push the organization forward and say, hey, I don't know, I've been listening to Kyle and James for the last year and a half, and they keep saying that your team lacks athleticism, length, and physicality and size at the 3 and the 4. Can you please go get that? I mean, it's the same exact thing that everybody's been saying.
Right. It wasn't new.
No. But it means more because it's Rich Paul.
I did find this interesting, though.
Okay.
This has been framed publicly as Monty McNair's decision. Okay. Monty McNair was the guy.
Yeah, I've heard Monty's name like written so many times that it's like sleeping on a textbook at this point, like trying to get osmosis. It's Monty's fault. It's Monty's fault. Yeah.
Sam Amick in The Athletic writes, and I'm just going to quote it here. Says, Fox has defended himself on X in an interview with ESPN. League sources confirmed his stance, with Brown himself known to believe that Fox had nothing to do with the decision and that Vivek Ranadive was the driving force behind it. That's interesting.
Key Michael Malone music.
Yes.
I mean...
And every other coach who spoke out on behalf of Mike Brown. And that's why when this got framed as a front office decision, a Monty McNair decision specifically. I couldn't fathom that Monty McNair woke up and said, hey, you know what? I want to fire Mike Brown. and made the calls, and that was just signed off on.
Okay, so
because Monty, I don't. That always stunk to me.
Well, no, like, look, Kyle, nobody is firing somebody that's owed $25 million without approval of the ownership group. Nobody is doing that.
But framing it as the driving force is the thing that jumps out to me there.
Yeah.
Like, not just that it got signed off on, but that was an edict from ownership that came down like, hey, you got to go make this happen. Yeah. Or we're going to make this happen, or whatever it was.
Well, I think the biggest issue that we've had so far, just so people are totally transparent,
please,
is that the Kings were now 7 days in to the firing. The Kings have yet to hold a press conference. Monty McNair has yet to hold a press conference and discuss this directly. And for whatever reason, there's this idea out there that people in Sacramento don't ask difficult questions in press conferences. We ask all kinds of difficult questions. I don't know.
Not loud about it.
Yeah, we just like aren't sitting there like yelling and screaming at somebody, which is what fans now want. They want us to like walk into a room and, you can't handle the truth and start yelling and berating somebody. That's not like asking a difficult question, though. But there hasn't been a press conference. So I would like to tell you that we will hold Monty McNair accountable for whatever happened here and ask him the tough questions. The problem is we have not been afforded that luxury, which, again, this is my 10th head coach in 15 years covering this team. Every other time there has been somebody who steps up and explains why they fired a coach. That's it. That's what you do. When you fire a head coach, you discuss why you fired a head coach with the media. And I know the Kings are working feverishly right now to try to make trades. I do. I know they are.
We'll discuss that.
But the fact is that what you can't do is make a trade really quick and then think that you'll hold a press conference for a trade and that you're going to bring in some new guy. There's some new guy's going to be sitting up there with Monty McNair. And then things are going to get really, really awkward. Because whether it's Cam Johnson or it's Kyle Kuzma or whoever, they're going to have to sit there while one question after another rolls in to Monty McNair about the firing of Mike Brown and why there wasn't a press conference, why they didn't make a trade like this. It could have possibly helped Mike and saved his path in Sacramento. It's going to be the topic because you didn't have a press conference. It's pretty basic. It's not confusing.
The questions that you and people who cover the team have, I don't even cover the team on a daily basis. I have them. People who are around the team and cover the team are not going away. Nobody's going to magically go, you know what? Don't really care how the Mike Brown thing went down anymore. Especially since it went down in such a ham-fisted way. It went down in the, no disrespect to hams, but it went down in the runs practice, does media, drives to the airport, gets called on the way to the airport. Like that whole thing going down that way only makes it worse. These questions aren't going to go away. And you said it perfectly. There's going to be some trade at some point, whether it's Cam Johnson, Kyle Kuzma, or Kessler Edwards. There's going to be some trade at some point, and that player is going to be introduced to Sacramento media with Monty McNair. And that's going to be question number 1, 2, 3, 4, however many it takes.
No, I mean,
I just don't understand it, man. It's
yeah,
baffling.
Well, that and I think people need to understand this too. Like people like Sam, people like me, people like Sean. We have so many things that we're not putting out there because like being able to put it out there with 100% viability is very difficult. Like putting yourself out there on a ledge, and we're respectful and responsible journalists. That's what we're doing. So there's a lot of things that we know, but that's why you put a general manager up there so we can ask the questions that we know, so they can give the answers to the questions that we have on the record. That's it.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Alas, we're not getting that.
No.
We'll talk about the Kings' win last night. We'll talk about trades coming up. Keon Ellis didn't know who Doug Christie was. That's kind of nuts. 49ers injury stuff, college football playoff. Tons to get into here on a Thursday. Caller Don, I see you on the line. Hang in there. We will get to you as well. It's the Elk Grove Kia Talk line, 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. If you'd like to join the program, we'd love to hear from you. I know a lot of people have thoughts. We'll get into all of it next on The Insider, sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader.
Hello, everybody. Let's see. Like, Scooter, I get what you're saying, but that doesn't, you still have to have the press conference. You do. Like, in all honesty, like, you have to come to a conclusion with one thing before you start another. And, if not, it's disrespectful for everyone involved. And at this point, like, I don't believe we're going to have a press conference, and that's their decision, but that's still, like, again, I've been through this too many times. I don't know. What you can't do is to go put your general manager on a radio friendly, a franchise friendly radio station and have him answer prepackaged questions and think that that's going to be enough, because we've seen that one too. Yeah, I would just say, like, again, when you've covered so many of these things, you're just looking around like, hey, like, this is, we've never seen anything like this. And they're like, oh, well, maybe ask this person. Like, man, whatever. Okay, Sass, this is completely wrong. A press conference is not to satisfy the media. A press conference is to show the fans that your representation in the room, which is the media, is asking the right questions and asking what you as a fan would like to know. It has nothing to do with satisfying me, because I know, like, I'm not going to go through my list of things that I know about this situation, but I know enough of this situation that I'm completely satisfied, Sass. But as fans should, like, want to know what exactly happened here. And they should also want the person who is being put forth as a representative of the Kings to answer the questions that should be answered. They should want that. Like, you can't ask us to hold somebody accountable when we can't hold someone accountable because they don't actually come out and hang out. So Frank Anwar, I don't know if you noticed, but there's like a gigantic man named Andre Drummond that was standing out there, and Jay Crowder and Isaac Jones had no chance to stop Andre Drummond, and that's a lot of the reason why they didn't play. Monty's not being blamed. Monty is the one who put out a statement that said he fired Mike Brown. Raymond. Like, I'm not blaming Monty. Like, they make these decisions as a group, but, like, Monty is the one who is being put forth as the guy who made this decision.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
That's James. I'm Kyle. Still no press conference after Mike Brown's firing. 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. If you'd like to join the program, we'd love to hear from you today in the wake of a 113-107 win for the Sacramento Kings over the Philadelphia 76ers. We've talked a lot about the Mike Brown firing, the way it's been handled by the Kings. James, real quick, before we move on here, I want to get to our caller.
Yeah.
And then I want to kind of spin this forward and take a look at what the Kings have looked like since Mike Brown's firing. Don, you are on the Insiders with Kyle and James. What's up?
Happy New Year's, fellas. It's Big E.
What up, Big E?
What's up, guys? Going back to Doug Christie, ever since his radio days, I've always been curious to see him as a head coach. If we're talking NBA 2K terms, I would give the man an A+ for his basketball IQ. I don't know if the timing was right for the hiring, but the time is now.
Right on. Thanks, Big E. Appreciate you.
I agree.
Yeah, man. Like last night, look, while I was not a proponent of firing Mike Brown, I did think it was something that had to happen after that Detroit game, and we talked about why. But last night's game is a perfect example to me. I think if they played that game last week while Mike Brown was the head coach, I think they lose. And probably lose comfortably. The way they locked in last night, especially down the stretch, was it 15-0 run to close the game? 15-0?
Yeah.
The 76ers scored 0 points down the last, was that 4.5, 5 minutes?
I think there was like 3:39. I think they called a timeout, and Doug said, "Hey, I need you to get 3 stops in a row. Mm-hmm. I need you to get 3 stops in a row right now." Mm-hmm. The 76ers never scored again.
Yep. They got it to 107. Tyrese Maxey hit a layup, with 3.5 minutes left to make it 107-98. And that was their last points.
Mm-hmm.
It was such an impressive defensive performance specifically down the stretch that I just don't think they were getting with Mike Brown. For whatever reason.
Yeah.
Whether it was the rotations, whether it was the way they're telling them to guard, whether it was the energy. I'm not a player on the team. I don't know specifically what it was, and I don't want to prescribe a reason. But I don't think they get that performance that they got last night if Mike Brown is a coach.
No, I think you're right. And I'm going to point out a couple of things. Number one, Doug Christie's rotations looked very, very similar to Mike Brown's rotations. Mm-hmm. The one thing that Doug has done the first 3 games as he's put Alex Len in the game early, mm-hmm. And then not gone back to Alex Len in the second half. So he's trying to get the size on the court that people have been like clamoring for, right? I think he's switched up a couple of rotational pieces where it used to be that he would go with Keegan Murray and De'Aaron Fox to the bench at the 6-minute mark and leave a trio of Monk, Domas, and DeMar on the court together. He's changed that to Monk, Domas, and Keegan, mm-hmm. and then come back with De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan as his 2 off the bench, mm-hmm. right? So he's made some subtle changes. But when I look at the box score from last night, Doug McDermott plays 9 minutes, goes 0 of 2 from the field. That looks exactly like things that Mike Brown tried. Kevin Huerter plays 18 minutes, goes 1 of 8 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3.
And just got flambéed defensively.
Just not fair. Like Kevin Huerter, like God bless his soul, like should not be out there defending Paul George, but that's what happens when Keegan Murray's not there. Mm-hmm. Like so. There wasn't a lot that Doug has done over the last 3 games that is that much different than what Mike Brown did. Keon Ellis played 38 minutes. He played 38 minutes because Keegan Murray was out. Mm-hmm. That's why he played 38 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, he mixed it up a little bit here and there, but realistically, it's the same group of players that has the same limitations that they had last week. Mm-hmm. The difference is there's a new voice in the room, and players want to make a good impression. And Doug is an inspired leader. And there's one thing that I want to point out. Like, first of all, anyone who has like followed me for any amount of time knows that Doug Christie and I have been friends for a while.
Mhm.
Like we shared a podcast for 3 years. We used to drive to the city together to do NBC Sports. Like me and Doug have a very good relationship, but I've never, since he's been a coach, me and him don't talk nearly as much because I've never wanted him to feel like I was asking questions about the team.
Right. Interfering.
I've never wanted to make him feel like he was one of my sources.
Mhm.
And I also have never wanted Mike to feel like Doug can't be around because he has friends in the media.
Sure.
Right. So it's always been hands off. Now look at
Hands off.
There we go. Hands off. That doesn't change the fact that like Doug has wanted to be a head coach for a long time. He wanted to be the head coach when Luke Walton got fired, and he was almost named the head coach.
Mhm.
They got into a contract negotiation with Alvin Gentry, and Doug's name was brought up as an alternative. And at that point, I like anything I could do to tell Doug, don't take that job. Whoever is taking that job at that point is going to lose that job because that team was never going to fix what was going on. No one could have fixed that. Phil Jackson couldn't have walked through that door with Red Auerbach as an assistant, and Greg Popovich running, his practice squad, or like no one could have fixed it. So this is an opportunity, and it's an opportunity where this team has a ton of talent. We talk about this all the time that they're missing this piece and this piece. They're missing those pieces, but this is still a 50-win team. It should be talent-wise on paper. Those things that we keep talking about that they're missing is so they can match up in the Western Conference, so they can match up when you get to the playoffs and you're in a 7-game series and you go up against a Paul George, which is in the Eastern Conference, but you go up against a player that you don't have an answer for, and you don't have an answer for that player because it wasn't addressed in like 3 years. So that's what we're talking about. This is still a very, very talented team that has underperformed grotesquely.
Yeah.
Like the fact that Mike Brown lost his job is because this team has too much talent to be this bad.
Yeah.
It's not because he underperformed as a coach, or like the team is underperformed straight up. So Doug has an opportunity here with a very talented team. If he can spark their imagination to get them through this, and he can get them to get behind him and go forward, then he's got an opportunity to not only be the coach for the rest of this year, but to get a long-term coaching job in Sacramento. And there's one thing I will tell everybody. Doug has always said this. He has unfinished business here. He feels so slighted by the fact that he doesn't have a championship ring from the Sacramento Kings, that they were jobbed by the officials. He mentioned it last night in his opening press conference that I need the players to stop yelling at the officials. That's my job. And he said, trust me, I know it's really difficult because I've been part of a few games that the officials affected as a player, and I know how much it hurts. Speaking specifically about Game 6 of the 2002 Western Conference Finals right here in front of us. Doug has unfinished business. He has something that the players keep talking about. Man, he loves his city. He loves his fan base. Like there's something tangible and different about Doug, that the passion that runs through him for getting something done here is tremendous. And I don't know if he's going to have an opportunity to get that done here. I don't know, because look, I've covered this team forever. I've been to one playoff series, right? And this team has been rudderless for a long time. It's always like 3 steps backwards, 2 steps forward, 5 steps backwards. It's always that. But if you have a talented team and a guy with a vision and is able to capture the imagination of the players, you might be able to turn this thing around. And if there's anybody I was going to give that opportunity to at this time, 3 years ago, Doug would have got like thrown through the wood chipper like anyone else would have. Today, he's got 3.5 years of coaching experience. He's put in the work. He's
with
put in
this
the
group
time.
of players specifically.
He knows these players. Him and De'Aaron Fox have always had a great relationship. Him and Domantas Sabonis have traveled the world working out together the last 3 years. Like there are so many ties that bind here that you're hoping that he can draw all these guys in. And some of these rumors about De'Aaron Fox and all that stuff might quiet down. And that's all. So. I think Doug is the guy at this point that there was no better answer for this because it wasn't a like X's and O's problem. It wasn't. It's literally you had a problem with a personality that not with Mike Brown, but a personality of a team. And now you got somebody who might be able change that.
Somebody who appears to approach the job of a head coach very differently from Mike Brown in terms of, and we haven't seen Doug have to coach through adversity yet, so maybe this will change. But it's very like, I'm gonna say Doug is a very like optimistic person.
Yeah,
very, very like if you saw the video of him with the team on the roof of Golden One Center last night, be the light for the city. Like this city loves you. Like continue to be that light. Like that. What's the like metaphorical, symbolic, optimistic positivity? It goes so far against Mike Brown doing the possession after possession after possession, and we got to do this and we got to do that. Where it was very like execution oriented, basketball between the lines oriented, and Doug is taking a more, I guess, like holistic approach.
Well, yeah, and that's it. If you've ever talked to Doug Christie, that's what he does.
Yeah.
Like everything, it's very outside the box. He is meticulous with his note-taking. He carries like it used to be a little green portfolio with him everywhere he goes, and he writes notes down, and then he goes back and he revisits his notes. He tries to digest what it is that he's learned, and he tries to get better every single day. Like he's a very, very intriguing person. Like I appreciate Doug for like the individual that he is. He's just a very different dude. But the spirit of him is that, number one, he believes. Number two, he has like an ability to make everybody feel like his passion is real. And it is. It's authentic. And, Bryce in the chat brought up Dan Campbell. Like maybe
that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're if you're a Kings fan, you should hope that, because Dan Campbell, his shtick, it could have got old really quick, but it didn't. And when it didn't, it became something different. And then that something different is probably going to lead the Lions to the Super Bowl this season and potentially their first championship in, like, what have they won? One playoff game in like the last 50 years?
Something insane like that.
It's crazy. But
was it like 92 they went to the NFC title game, I think?
Yeah, I'm going to back a guy like that, because that's what you're starting to feel like. Maybe it's just that. Maybe it's just somebody stepping in and doing something that's just a little different. Same basic structure, same offensive coordinator, same defensive coordinator, but the messaging is different. And maybe he's able to turn this thing around. So I think fans out there, they should be pulling for him, because I like, there is not a more authentic NBA player than Doug Christie.
This is the best example I get, like personal example I have of, you obviously know Doug much better than I do, but I've worked with him at a couple different places, and I worked with him at a radio station, and I've been at radio stations where former athletes have been hosts. And the norm is former athlete rolls in right before the show starts and brings whatever they have on their playing days. And then they just, you gotta hold their hand and pass notes and send info and give them scripts to get through anything that's not related to their sport, whether it's baseball, basketball, football, whatever. It's really tough. Doug is the kind of detail-oriented person who you talk about striving to get better every day. He was in there well before his show started. If it wasn't basketball, if they were doing a football thing, he was locked in. He was asking questions of anybody who walked by. Hey, what'd you think about this? What'd you see on this? Here's my thought on this. Like, just constantly asking questions, knowing what he didn't know, and then working to make sure he knew that thing. And if that's how you're going to, like, to me, if that's how you're going to be as an assistant coach, that puts you in a really good spot to be a head coach. So we'll see. Off to a good start. They're 2-1. They won that game last night. The thing that jumped out to me last night against Philly, and this is something a lot of people took away from the game. It was something that I think you had to take away. What was the game Keegan missed earlier this year?
It was a very important. It was during the stretch where they barely played any games. I can get that for you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Because that game and then last night, it's like, man, if the front office doesn't watch that game last night and watch the way that Paul George just kind of controlled the game whenever he wanted to.
Oh, it's Denver, because Doug McDermott started against Michael Porter Jr. and it was like, come on, And that's not a Mike problem. That's not a Mike problem.
No. I don't know what to do here because I don't have the wing depth to make up for the loss of Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
They don't have the wing depth when they have Keegan Murray, who is a good wing player.
Yep.
Specifically defensively. So if last night wasn't enough to go, dang, needed a 15-0 run to close out a not very good Sixers team without Joel Embiid and with Paul George fouled out of the game. If that's not enough to catalyze a move and maybe make an overpay, I don't know what is. If last night didn't convince you to do literally anything to bolster your depth behind and alongside Keegan Murray, I don't know what does, man.
And Kyle, I've said this a couple of times, and I honestly believe this. The team at this point, they kind of have to show you that they deserve that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's tough, but like a team, they have to show you that they're good enough for you to go out and extend and trade draft picks.
That's fair.
And I know that people are like, what are you talking about? It's like, look, if you go out and make a deal and you don't take this huge step and you don't get back into playoffs and you don't like put this thing back together and all of a sudden you're back on track, this team doesn't have any assets. You can't just give away a 2027 first round pick just because. Because your team's not good enough today. Like this team can't be at the bottom of the Western Conference standing and saying, hey, Cam Johnson's going to fix this whole thing. No, Cam Johnson would help, but he can't fix his whole thing.
Right.
And he's going to cost something to get. But what you can't do is say, okay, 2 years from now, when Cam Johnson's no longer under contract and DeMar DeRozan is no longer under contract, and your first round pick is gone from a trade that didn't impact winning at the time. So show me that you can get back in the race. Show me that you're not a team that's 6 games under 500, that you're a team that's 3 games over 500. Well, like prove to me that you deserve as a group of players to be for me to go get you those things that you need and to trade away those assets. Now, the problem is they just lost 5 in a row, 6 in a row, and it put them in a really bad spot.
Right.
They should have made this deal weeks ago. They should have made it when they had 2 games in 12 days and you could have integrated a new player in. That's when you should have made a deal. But sometimes it takes 2 to tango, and if you can't come across a deal that makes sense for both teams, then you're kind of stuck at an impasse.
Sure. Let's head out to the Oak Grove Kia talk line real quick. 916-909-1320. 916-909-1320. It's Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, what's up?
How are you guys? Happy and healthy New Year to you and your families.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
What do you got?
Thanks. I didn't like the fire on Mike Brown. That was his fault. Big mistake. And I don't want to see him giving up on Fox. I read that he's not going to sign extension. Don't listen to the agent. They got to sign him. There's no way. You got to keep him and Sabonis. Those are keepers. But we have to get a little bigger. We got to make a trade. I want to see this guy. I heard Devin Carter is being recalled. I want to see what he's got. Pull heels, lifts in his shoes, whatever it takes. I want to see he can play bigger than 6'2".
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch. Appreciate the call.
Yeah, like the Devin Carter thing. I think it's interesting. I don't know. I'm stuck with Devin Carter in no, like there's the reality, right? Okay.
And in reality, I don't know where his minutes come from.
Well, you do. You just don't want to say it.
What?
They come from Keon Ellis. So everyone out there who loves Keon Ellis is going to be really, really pissed when Devin Carter takes his minutes.
Right, but that's just it. Is I'm a big Keon Ellis guy. I thought he was outstanding last night.
Oh, I thought he was too.
I thought the fact DeMar DeRozan won the Defensive Player of the Game chain or crown or whatever it is insane.
Keon had 2 blocks and 4 steals.
Keon got snubbed. One of DeMar DeRozan's steals was Paul George just fumbling the basketball when it hit DeMar DeRozan in the chest. Anyways, I digress. I guess that's kind of my point. Is okay, let's assume that De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk and Keon Ellis are going to get their normal allotment of minutes. I don't know where Devin Carter fits, but then there's the irrational part of me that's like, hey man, did we all see what he did in his debut for Stockton at Golden One Center?
Yeah. 29 points, 8 rebounds,
6
3
of 9
assists,
from 3, just
steals.
doing. And this is why, like, Devin Carter seems to me, and we haven't seen him play an NBA game yet, so I might be way off base, but where I sit right now on January 2nd, 2025, without seeing Devin Carter play a second of NBA basketball, the Kings to me need a dirty work type of dude who is just going to go in. He's going to play scrappy defense. He's going to defend full court. He's going to get you an extra possession or two with a rebound. He's going to get you a couple of hustle plays. Like, he's just going to do the little things that affect winning on the margins that the Kings don't currently have. But I would love to see that, but I don't know how. I don't know what it looks like, because I don't think fewer Keon Ellis minutes is good for the Kings.
Nope.
But
you also don't think fewer Malik Monk minutes are good for the Kings. You don't think that fewer De'Aaron Fox minutes
I sure don't
are good for the Kings. And to be honest with you, like, we've talked about this a couple of times. Well, will Devin Carter play or will he not play this season? First of all, Devin Carter's going to play this season, whether it's in Sacramento or somewhere else. He is going to play.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll just get that out of the way. The game that he played for the Stockton Kings at Golden 1, I thought he was phenomenal for about 2.5 quarters and then completely ran out of gas, which I think that's the thing the Kings are trying to work through right now, is to get him in shape. I'm also going to warn fans. First of all, he played at the G League level and put up a bunch of points where he got to do whatever he wants. He's not going to be able to do that with the Kings. And the problem that you have now is, how do you fit him into a box as a player who hasn't played since March, who hasn't worked out? He hasn't been on the court playing with this team, playing 5-on-5, doing any of that stuff in practice or anything else for months and months and months. Again, he hasn't played in 9 months. So expecting him to be any kind of savior is such just a wrong way to look at it, because he can do 8 great things in a game in the 12 minutes that he might get. But in that 12 minutes, he could also do 6 things that are just really wrong.
Yeah.
And they're really wrong just because he doesn't have the experience and he has not been on the court and he doesn't know all the playbook. And he might have read the playbook front to back 800 times, but it doesn't matter until you get on the court and you're functionally doing it.
Right.
And so there is this like, how do you get him up to speed? But then how do you pepper him in without it being like a huge problem for the rest of the team? And it's not like he had a training camp. It's not like he worked out with the team the weeks leading up to training camp and start to get some sort of continuity with the players on the court. He has not gone through any of that. And so any expectations for him has to be tampered by that. If he was on let's just say per se, he's on the Brooklyn Nets, he would get to go out there and play 26, 28 minutes a night and get his feet wet and learn and make mistakes. And it doesn't really matter. Just play hard, kid.
Yeah.
That's fine. When you're playing for a team that not only is talented like the Kings, but is also behind the 8 ball because they dropped 6 games in a row when they shouldn't have. Now there's just so much more to like fitting in and trying to do the right thing and trying to be the player that they want. So I get that people want to see him, but I also understand that it's going to be really difficult to integrate somebody who hasn't played basketball in 9 months and never, ever played at the NBA level.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to be a Friar. It's a whole nother thing to be a King.
Shout out Friars.
And it's not even like being a Stockton King. It's being a Sacramento King. It's different.
Turns out Providence Friar fans run deep on the internet.
They run deep
crazy
every time.
Salute, bro.
Every time you mention Devin Carter, Friar.
Don, I see you on the line. Hang in there. We will get to you after we step aside for a moment. You did a heavy air quotes Brooklyn when you mentioned a potential place Devin Carter might play. I want to discuss that with you and Kings trade options next. He's James. I'm Kyle. Jiffy Lube's a sponsor. It's ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. And clear. Real quick, before I go cut this audio, I wanted to mention from last break when we were talking about press conferences and satisfying the media or whatever it was that got said in the chat. It's also to take the onus off the players who have to answer the questions instead.
Yes.
It sucks that De'Aaron Fox has to be the one answering questions about why Mike Brown got fired, or Doug Christie, or Domantas Sabonis, or whoever.
Yep.
That's ass.
DeMar DeRozan.
That's cowardly, dude.
Yeah.
That's why it sucks.
Well, that, and I will tell you, like, when the Sacramento Kings tried to relocate the first time, right? They tried to relocate to Anaheim. The Maloofs were cowards, flat out cowards. And the people that were running their PR behind the scenes cowards. They left Paul Westphal out in front of the whole thing. Paul Westphal and a 19-year-old DeMarcus Cousins and a bunch of people that had no idea what was going on to answer questions. Jason Thompson should never have been asked about questions about whether you're going to Anaheim or not. But that's the situation that happened. And like, as my first year, like cutting my teeth in the league, that is what I dealt with a head coach who's standing up there, who coached the Seattle Supersonics and played for the Seattle Supersonics, standing up in front of, people like trying to express, and not only that, who lived in Southern California at that time, like trying to express why it is that the city of Sacramento deserved a team. It was very difficult. And it's kind of the same exact feeling that I have at this point. Like, you cannot leave the players, the coaches out there to have to answer these questions. And Paolo, R.I.P. Paul Westphal. Paul Westphal, like, he was a friend. Very, very sad when he passed a couple of years ago. Anyway. Yeah, man. I don't know who made that statement. Oh, yeah, man. Sean, that's a horrible take. In all honesty, that's no. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Sorry. Devin Carter can take Kevin's minutes. Devin Carter is 6'2". Kevin is 6'7", and got matched up against Paul George last night because he's the only player the Kings have at 6'7". So, okay. Plus, he's never played in the NBA and has no idea how the transfer of like playing against higher end talent is going to look like. Oh.
Trying to be better about
yeah. Marcus, this is very true. Devin Carter's wingspan is actually bigger than Kevin Huerter's wingspan. Yeah. No, I don't want Carter out of Sacramento. I'm just being realistic about Devin Carter, and I want other people to be realistic about Devin Carter, because as a player, he deserves that. For us to continuously tell you that that he has not played in a long time and he's going to need time. And I think he did look really good in Stockton until he didn't. And that was because of just the I thought he was gassed. There we go.
Hour number 2, that's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen, Jiffy Lube, omnipresent as always. They sponsor the program. Salute to our guys at Jiffy Lube, our men and women at Jiffy
Lube.
Yeah. We appreciate them all very much. And we hope that you will appreciate them too. Go visit the location nearest you for more information. Visit jiffylube.com. All right.
Do we have a keyword?
Yes.
Later in the show?
Yes. Coming up next segment, I need to confirm that our keyword is good, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so where were we? Kings phone line, Elk Grove Kia talk line, 916-909-1320, 916-909-1320. So Real quick, funny thing before we get into Kings trade stuff, we were talking about Doug Christie and the soundbite from the weekend of Keon Ellis saying that he doesn't know who Doug Christie is, or at least who Doug Christie was as a player.
He knows who Doug is because
he's
Doug's
an assistant coach.
Yeah.
But he is not familiar with Doug's game. And is like, I don't think he guards better than me. Like my brother in Christ.
So,
dog.
Shout out to our guy, Brendan. Brendan Nunes. We love Brendan.
From the Kings Beat podcast.
Yeah, from the Kings Beat podcast. And that's all. And nothing else. Brendan asked him if he had watched video of Doug. And he was like, no. And he's like, well, he was pretty good. And yeah, I mean, just like an honest assessment.
4-time all defensive team.
4-time all defensive team.
Top 5 defensive player of the year vote getter twice.
2 times. Not only that, but this is I actually caught up to this was funny. I caught up to Keon before the game. He was talking to Bobby Jackson, who of course Bobby Jackson is an assistant for the Philadelphia 76ers now, former Kings legend and former Kings assistant coach who knows Keon from his years here in Sacramento.
Mm-hmm.
And Bobby was the Stockton Kings head coach with Keon like 3 years ago. So anyway, I jokingly said to Keon, he doesn't, like, you really have never watched Doug play? He's like, no. He's like, I haven't watched him play. And I'm like, okay, that's crazy. He's like, was he that good? And Bobby's sitting right there. He's like, yeah, he was that good, man. And it was like, hey, you know that record that De'Aaron Fox just broke, right? He broke Doug's record for most steals in the Sacramento Kings era, right? He just surpassed Doug's record. He goes, yeah, I saw that. I'm like, okay, you realize that Doug played for the Kings for 5 years and De'Aaron took 8 years to get to that record.
Right.
Steals. He's like, how many steals was it? And Bobby's like, I think it was something like 770 steals in 5 years. He's like, oh. He's like, yeah, man, he was the guy who through the glory years of the Kings matched up against Kobe Bryant every night. He was an incredible defender. Yeah. So good stuff from Keelan.
If I was an NBA player, and by the way, Doug did that, the Kobe stopper stuff in his 30s.
Yeah.
His first year in Sacramento was his age 30 season.
Yep.
This wasn't a 26-year-old Doug Christie flying around. This was a 30-year-old at a time where 30 was actually 30.
Yeah.
He's a dog, bro.
So
if I was an NBA player, though, real quick.
Yeah.
And there was a former player on the coaching staff, how does your curiosity not take you to YouTube real quick?
Real quick.
Just a quick Google search. Oh, wow. Doug was in the league 15 years. There's got to be a highlight tape out there. You go do a little research on your coaches? Bro, when somebody gets hired here at the station, like,
you go look at their LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Where have they been? What do they do?
Yeah, what do they do?
They're a sales leader or whatever, I don't know, whatever position. Where are they from?
Yeah.
What do they know? How do you not? Oh, Doug Christie. Oh, he played for the Kings. Oh, he's people are wearing Doug Christie jerseys around their arena. I wonder what this guy's all about.
I'll tell you,
I have a little curiosity, Keon.
Like getting to have the relationships that I've had with Doug is like, it's bonkers because all of the things that you would want to ask a player like Doug, I got to because we were stuck in the car together all the time. Like we would drive to and from the city for, it's San Francisco. So 2.5, 3 hours, sometimes 4 hours. It depends on and then you got to get after the show, you got to get back in the car and drive all the way back.
And that's a long ass drive.
It's we called it car casting. We would do a podcast while we drove and I would literally have a lav mic on and Doug would sit there with a microphone.
That's the mic that attaches to your collar.
Your lapel. Yeah, exactly. So I would host a podcast in the car while we were driving and you could hear the thump, thump, thump of the Bay Bridge the whole time. I'd say, we're now in Richmond, everybody, just so you know where we're at for the pod. So we would go, but to have him talk about defending Kobe, he told me this crazy story. He said the first year, I think it was 2001, they played the Lakers in the playoffs and lost. He said, I realized that if I ran up and put my hand in Kobe's face, it bugged him. It bugged him bad.
Right.
And he went cold, and it was working. Like every single time I'd fly in, I would put my hand in his face so he couldn't see the basket. He's like, then they go on to the next round, and Bruce Bowen saw it and did the same thing. Like hand in the face, right? Kobe just was a disaster because of it. He still like was great, but still
not normal Kobe.
Not normal Kobe. He said they played them in the preseason next year, and I went to go put my hand in Kobe's face, and he's like, I swear to you, that dude spent 5 or 6 months walking around with somebody with his hand in his face the entire time. The hand in the face thing never ever worked again. He's like, that's when I realized I was playing like 3-dimensional chess with one of the greatest players of all time that just was going to outwork you and outthink you the entire time. He's like, what he was able, like the hand in the face never once again bothered him at all. He knew exactly where he was, how far his distance was to the basket, where he was, falling away, going side, going right, going left. He knew exactly where he was because he clearly saw the deficiency that Doug had pointed out, and he worked tirelessly to fix it. And that's where, and Doug's like, and then I had to come up with something new. Yep. And like the whole time, it's like back and forth chess match with Kobe Bryant, which they did not get along. And they,
there's levels to this, Keon.
There's levels to this, Keon.
Being a nice defender on a team that doesn't play a ton of defense is not the ceiling, brother. Anyways, shout out to Keon Ellis. Shout out to Doug Christie. Doug Christie, Sacramento Kings legend. All right. You did something interesting in the last segment. First of all, you said, am I allowed to tweet this? I want to tweet this out, but I know that I don't want to misrepresent here. You said, quote, Devin Carter is going to play this season, whether it's in Sacramento or somewhere else. And then later, you threw out if he played for Brooklyn, and you did it with air quotes.
Like, look,
when you say stuff like that, it makes me think, makes my mind work.
Okay, so look, we talked about this on the Kings Beat podcast yesterday. Me and Sean and Brendan, we discussed a little bit of like, look, the Kings are trying to actively make trades right now. But I wrote this bleak piece. What was that, Monday?
Yeah, it was tough. It was a tough read.
It's a tough read. It breaks down the assets of the Sacramento Kings. And one of those assets, well, I mean, like, look, if you look at second round picks, they only have access to their 2029 second round pick.
Yikes.
That's it. 7 years of second round picks, all they have access to. When I say access, that means that if Kevin Huerter, the Kevin Huerter trade, the Kings gave up a protected pick. It was top 14, and then this year it'll be top 12 protected. Next year it'll be top 10 protected. If that pick doesn't relay in 2026, it dissolves and becomes a 2026 and 2027 second round pick. So the Kings can't access those picks right now because they're already spoken for. So the only second round pick that they can trade right now is their 2029. And they have this ridiculous protected 2025 pick from the Chicago Bulls, which is protected 31 through 55. So if the Bulls somehow become the best team in basketball and their second round pick becomes a bottom 5 pick, the Kings would get it, right? So when we're talking about assets, there's all of these things that are going on. The Kings have very little in the cupboard outside of some first round picks at 27, 28, 29, 30. Their 31 pick has a pick swap on it, but they can still trade that pick from the Harrison Barnes trade to San Antonio.
Right. But that person accepting that in a trade is going to know that San Antonio has that pick swap.
They have the pick swap, and they always will have the pick swap with Sacramento. So so if the Kings finish like they're bad, and it's like they somehow win the lottery and they're the first pick in the draft, and at that point Victor Wembanyama is a superstar, and the San Antonio Spurs are the best team in basketball, and they're the 30th pick in the draft, they can literally swap picks. And that's, Kyle, that's not even like, it could get worse than that if the NBA decides to expand. That pick could get worse.
Oh.
Yeah, that pick could get worse. So anyway, they don't have a lot of assets. And one of the assets they do have is Devin Carter. And I know that's uncomfortable for people to hear, but let's be honest here. Everything everything we heard going into draft night was that the Kings were likely going to trade the 13th pick in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
When Devin Carter fell there were teams that wanted to trade for Devin Carter's rights at that point. And one of those teams, I believe, from what I've heard, was the Brooklyn Nets. So if there is a possibility that there could be some sort of, like move on the horizon that the Kings are trying to pull off. And if you have the choice between giving up Devin Carter or giving up a first round pick or 2 future first round picks, there's potential for him to be included in one of these trades. Again, we talked about it. Where does he fit anyways? If you fear that De'Aaron Fox is going to ask out and you're worried that you're not going to have a point guard outside of like Malik Monk sliding over, like there's always a possibility here. We're not talking about, this is not the 4th pick in the draft and Keegan Murray. This is the 13th pick in the draft. And that has different value. And mind you, in a very suspect draft.
Right.
And a draft that's proving out to be as suspect as everyone thought.
Right.
Like there are some good players in this draft, sure. But you don't know what you have. You do know what Cam Johnson is. So if there's a possibility that instead of giving up future first round picks, you were to give up a player that was a first round pick that has not played an NBA game yet, it's got to be on the table. And the Kings might say, no, we're never doing that. But I don't think that's the case. They're willing to do whatever it takes to get better.
Yeah, I'm so interested with the whole, like, if you think De'Aaron Fox is going to ask out thing. And that's why that's the logic or the thought process for not trading an unprotected first.
Yeah.
Because my gut reaction to that is trade the first. Who cares about a first round pick in 2029 or whenever it is? Like, you got to get better now. You can cross that 2029 bridge when you get there. But on the other hand, I understand why there'd be some trepidation about, like, yeah, hey, now matters, but also you got to like line things up for the future. What I don't want to see happen with the Kings, whether it's with Devin Carter or anyone else, I don't want to see them scared into paralysis where they go, okay, well, De'Aaron might walk or might ask out, I should say. De'Aaron might ask out, so we're not going to trade a pick because they put themselves in a position where now De'Aaron's asking out because they didn't trade a pick to get better.
Yeah, chicken or egg.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like, at some point, but I think, like with all things, there's the extremes of trade all the picks, don't trade any of the picks, and it's probably somewhere in the middle. I need them to do something, and if that's moving Devin Carter before he plays a snap or plays a minute for them, then fine. If that's what it takes to get Cam Johnson into a Kings uniform, where it's wing depth, it's another very good defender
under contract for 2 years after this season
at a reasonable rate.
Yep.
Then great, fine. And if Devin Carter turns into a Hall of Famer, you eat it, you live with it.
Yeah.
But like, if that's on the table, if that's something that the Nets want to do, and they say, fine, Devin Carter and other stuff for Cam Johnson, great. If Devin Carter is the stand-in for a first-round pick, I will do that every day.
Yeah, so here's also, like, I'm going to point this out. Like, if you're trading De'Aaron Fox, the Kings aren't in a situation here where you're going to go trade De'Aaron Fox for 3 future first-round picks. I mean, there might be picks that come back, right? But that's not where the Kings are as a franchise right now. They have a veteran team. Yep. If you are forced to trade De'Aaron Fox, which I'm not doing unless he specifically says, hey, it's time for me to go, and then you've got to figure that one out. But if I'm looking at De'Aaron Fox as a player, if he's moving out, you don't need role players back. You're not trading him to a place where you're getting 2 or 3 role players for a star level player. You're the Sacramento Kings. The only way for you to get a star level player is through the draft. Like, you have not been able to ever trade for one. We can say DeMar DeRozan, but DeMar DeRozan is like, let's be honest, he's a 35-year-old, 6-time All-Star and a future Hall of Famer. He's 35 years old. You got him at the end of his career. You did not get him as a 27-year-old, right? So there is this reality that if you're the Kings and you do have to trade De'Aaron Fox, you still have Malik Monk. You still have Domantas Sabonis. You still have Keegan Murray. You still have a lot of pieces, and it's a double-edged sword. You've got some talent still, but that means that you're not going to be horrific.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to be as good, most likely. So when you go make a trade like that, you're not looking to trade 1 star for 3 role players. You're looking to trade 1 star for 2 high-end role players and 1 player that may or may not be a star, just not yet.
Right.
And that's what you're hoping. You're going to reset and move your timeline a little bit, but you're still taking back talent, like big-time talent, if you're going to trade Fox. You are not trading De'Aaron Fox for a middle-of-the-road talent and salary filler and 2 first-round picks.
I don't think they're trading De'Aaron Fox, period.
I hope they're not, but like if he says I'm not signing here and you need to trade me,
sure,
then you're going to consider it, and then you're going to also most likely
such a tough spot.
You're going to wait until this summer. You're not doing it between now and February, whatever. At least in my book, you're not, because you get to this summer and there's more available. First of all, everyone now has access to their 2032 pick as well, right? So that it just adds more like, sort of assets to the overall pool. But it's where a player like Jalen Green, who signed a 3-year extension, his contract now becomes tradable next season, this off season. So like, again, if you're going to circle teams that the Kings might be interested in trading with, we've heard like San Antonio, we've heard Miami, we've heard LA. Houston is going to be one that's mentioned as well. They're a team that's assessing what they have right now.
Right.
They've got a ton of young talent, but that's where I go. You're looking at young talent that has 3 or 4 years of NBA experience. Some of them need to be paid, but you're still taking back pieces that might fit what you're doing.
A De'Aaron Fox trade is not a rebuilding move.
No.
It would be with the hope of, okay, it's a shift in pathway.
Yes.
Like, this is now, instead of building around De'Aaron Fox, it's Malik Monk and Keegan Murray and Domantas Sabonis, and then you're now trying to bolster that core.
Yes.
And that's so that's why you bring up like a team like the Rockets that has all these
young and up and coming players,
right, who have played in the NBA, who like, hey, that's an effective NBA player. Cam Whitmore was awesome down the stretch last year, and he can't get regular minutes for the Rockets right now.
Yeah.
And I get why the Rockets want to hold on to those pieces as long as they can to kind of, wait and see what they're dealing with. But the Kings aren't just going to up and trade De'Aaron Fox to Oklahoma City because they have all the picks, or Utah because they have all the picks.
No.
Like, it's going to require players who can help Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray, Malik Monk. And that's what I think is going to make this difficult, because I think any team that's acquiring him is going to want to acquire him to add him to their group of good players. They're not going to want to give up a ton of those good players in the process.
Well, and that's why I point to Houston, because Houston not only has young players, they also have picks, and they have salary availability coming up, so like they're a prime team that I would trade with. And then like you're starting to look at other teams. You're like, okay, does Tyler Hero and Jaime Jaquez and a first or something, does that make sense to you? Like, you're looking at a couple of like good role players. It does. You go to San Antonio and there, it's Castle and Sohan and Keldon Johnson. It's like, the talent difference between that to De'Aaron Fox. That's tough.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're talking about, like, if you're building a team, you have to think of all these things. And that's why if you're trying to save this season, you're trying to save this group of players and potentially keep them together and give them some sort of rally cry. Sometimes it does hurt. And sometimes you have to trade a guy like Devin Carter. And like, look, I think Devin Carter is going to be a very, very good NBA player. But like in the chat, someone like compared him to SGA.
What?
Like, and that's like, oh, wait. What are we comparing him to? That doesn't make sense. Like, no, if you're going to compare him, you're going to compare him to a very, very good role player in the league. At least that's how I look at him. And he was the 13th pick in a draft. Of course, he had a shoulder injury, which hurt his draft stock, but that didn't drop him from like a top 3 pick to number 13. It dropped him from like a 8, 9, 10 to number 13.
Right.
And so again, like, am I looking at that? Okay. Because you're trading an unknown for a known like quantity. Like, exactly what Cam Johnson is, and you can see visions of how he would work with your team. And we keep bringing up Cam Johnson because, like, look, the Kings and Nets have talked They have talked recently. I know that to be the fact. And not only have they talked recently, but the Nets are already open for business. They've already traded Dorian Finney-Smith, which the Kings didn't have the 3 second-round picks to get involved in that deal.
Right.
They've already traded Dennis Schroeder, 2 second-round picks. Kings didn't have 2 second-round picks. And, we keep saying they don't have these second-round picks. The other option is that you give up a first-round pick, and the Kings don't want to do that. So, it's complicated.
Yeah.
And if Devin Carter does, in fact, at some point become a member of a different team, because that's the asset that you have that's not named Keegan Murray, that's young, then maybe that's what you do.
So be it, dude.
Yeah, and every team is... go ahead.
If you're not going to give up a first-round pick, then that's what you have to do, because you've laid it out on the Kings Beat, kingsbeat.com. Subscribe today. They don't have other assets to play with.
Yeah.
This is what you got. You got first-round picks, and you got Devin Carter and contracts.
And if
that's it,
the Nets come back to you and say, we need Keon Ellis because Jordy Fernandez loves Keon Ellis, then you have to sit there and you have to make decisions.
That's tough.
I'm telling you, though, these are the realities of
right.
You have to, in order to get something in the NBA, you have to give something up.
Yep.
And if you don't want to give up first-round picks, you've got to get creative, and it's difficult, but that's the reality.
You mentioned earlier losing the 6 in a row put them in a really tough spot, because now it's you got to make a trade, but also man, it's looking more and more like you might have to overpay to make that trade. And are you comfortable with what the team has looked like, giving up potentially an, let's say, unprotected first or top 5 protected first?
Yeah.
For Cam Johnson? Is that going to be enough to make you good enough to justify giving up that future asset? I don't know. But it's you got to do something now, but doing something now probably means an overpay. That's just a brutal spot.
Unfortunately, you're not at the position that we keep talking about where you got to make a move just to make a move. I've never been someone who promotes that.
Right.
You make a move because you're not good enough.
Yeah.
But now you're at a point where, do you make a move because you're not good enough, or do you realize that you're not good enough? Or you make the opposite move where you start to sell.
No.
And that's in all honesty, the players have found themselves in this situation. And Monty McNair has found himself in this situation. Inactivity costs this team.
That's it.
Inactivity costs this team bad. And it costs you a head coach. It costs you the relationship potentially with your star player. Inactivity. That is why you don't wait and wait and wait and wait and wait for the perfect deal. Sometimes you got to go, oh, this is going to hurt. I got to do it.
Yep.
And then sometimes you look at it and you say, it's too late. I can't do that.
Yep.
And I know what it's going to cost.
Ugh. I don't envy the front office.
Tough world, man. Tough world.
It's a position they've put themselves in, though. All right. College football playoff happened over the weekend. That was fun.
Yeah.
You could hear it right here on ESPN 1320. We'll tap into that. And then Hoops Habit had some Kings trade ideas. I would love to run through those with you, because I love nothing more than people not plugged into a market issuing trade ideas.
Oh, yeah.
And I would love to run through those. We'll do that all next. He's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. We're the Insiders, and we're sponsored by Jiffy Lube. It's ESPN 1320. It's Sacramento Sports Leader. We're clear.
When do we have that's next week, right? Lab reads?
I don't know. I think so, maybe.
Okay.
But we don't have any of that.
Okay, cool.
All right, I need to send this to Jesse.
Yeah. This is that's what you have to be thinking right there. That is not going to work. I get it. A player wants to go to a spot that he wants to go to, but that's he has some power, and his agent has some power as far as we will or won't sign an extension type deal. but I bring up Houston all the time because De'Aaron Fox did build a house in Houston this summer, and his family, his mom, and dad they are in Houston and all that stuff. But I'm also like, De'Aaron wants to make it work here. Like, at least that's always been the vibe that I've got from him. And when it comes to like making a move, it will be because he feels like there's no way for them to go up, to recover and to be better. It's a tough world. I know this is like the biggest cliche in sports, but winning might cure all here. I didn't see Tom L. I didn't see Eric Pincus's trade idea. I do like Eric Pincus, though. He's a friend of the show. He's been on. What's that?
Friend of the program?
Friend of the program.
I got to tell you guys, first show of the new year, I'm crushing it on the producer side.
Oh, awesome.
Which means I'm about to make some kind of catastrophic mistake. Can't wait. Can't wait to see what it is. I think this is in an ideal world. I agree with this. On a peak version of the Kings roster, Malik is a sixth man, but on this version, he probably has to start.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Buddy, you're telling me.
I'm looking at, oh wow, this is
what?
Eric Pincus, full trade scenario. Reed Shepard, Cam Whitmore, Jeff Green, Jayshawn Tate, Jock Landale, a 2027 first round pick swap, 2028 first rounder, 2030 first rounder, 2031 pick swap. Kings, Rockets get De'Aaron Fox, Trey Lyles, and Doug McDermott. This is
how would they do it? How would they do a 31 pick swap with the Rockets? San Antonio would get the higher of the Rockets and Kings picks?
No, the Kings could steal the Rockets.
So the Kings would swap. Let's say the Kings have the first pick.
They could drop to 28.
Spurs have the 30th. They swap, but then let's say Rockets have 2. The Kings could then swap at the Rockets.
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Now, back to the Insiders with James Ham and Kyle Madsen, brought to you by Jiffy Lube on ESPN 1320.
916-909-1320, 916-909-1320 is the Elk Grove Kia talk line. We'd love to hear from you on January 2nd. First show of the new year. Hope everybody had a wonderful new year. Friday's the cutoff for me, by the way. Tomorrow is the last day you can say Happy New Year.
Oh, okay. There was a lot of Happy New Year's at the stadium last night.
Yeah,
Happy
good.
New Year. Happy
Good.
New Year.
Yeah, no, fine. Today, fine. Tomorrow, fine.
Okay.
Once we get into the weekend, nah.
It's over.
Nah, it's over. Happy New Year. Is it? Is it? Once I've had enough time to be miserable in the new year, I don't want to hear it anymore.
The one good thing is that we don't write a lot of checks anymore,
Facts.
So you can't mistakenly write 2024.
Yeah, the only thing.
Check.
Yeah, that was always the thing in school, right?
Yeah.
As well. When you were writing the date on your paper, you always had to remember. All I have to do is change the folders that I'm dropping sound into.
Yeah, half the
That's
time.
That's easy for me. I do it once and I'm done.
I have to think about it. Well, like, what year is it? That's not good.
It's the Elk Grove Kia talk line, 916-909-1320. Don, you're on the Insiders with Kyle and James. What's up?
Hammer, Kyle, Happy New Year, bro. Kyle, I just heard what you said. Hey, I'm with you on Friday, bro, but Happy New Year. I had to tap in.
Hey, same to you, bro. Thanks for calling. What do you got?
Hey, now, James, I'm with you. At this point, I'm with you on Devin. I like what I've seen with Devin, but if Devin or Keegan is holding up that trade with Cam Johnson, you got to make that move and worry about everything on the back end. The whole Fox trade, if Fox acts out, that'll be like this summer. I'm with you. But right now, you got to make that move, right? Keegan is who he is. I love Keegan, but he's not going to get no better, in my opinion. So if you're holding up the trade because of Keegan or Devin Carter, Bonnie, you got to pull a move. You made the move firing Mike faster than that, bro. So you
pull the trigger, bro. Cam is gonna come in and help this team, especially with the way Doug got these dudes playing and believing. Cam will fit in nice, bro. Period. Did we even miss Keegan last night?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they did. Thanks for the call, TC. But to TC's point, I thought I'm not involving Keegan in a Cam Johnson deal, because the goal would be, like, to me, having more players who are above 6'6".
I used to say this all the time. It's like everyone out there wants to trade Harrison Barnes. You don't need to trade Harrison Barnes. You need another Harrison Barnes and another Harrison Barnes.
Right.
And to be honest with you, that's what they did. They went out and got Kevin Huerter, which was about the same level as Harrison Barnes. They got a Malik Monk, which was about the same level of talent as Harrison Barnes. You added more Harrison Barnes quality pieces to some stars. And I'm going to say a couple of things about Keegan. Number one, we have not seen the best of Keegan Murray at all. Like, Keegan Murray will be a much better player than what we're seeing right now. Keegan Murray, from what I know, is playing on a very, very bad ankle. And it's something that he injured either right at the beginning of the season or right at the end of training camp. And he has struggled with swelling in his ankle multiple times. We've heard rumors of, fluids being drained, of cortisone shots. Like, he's been struggling trying to fight through. And when he missed a game, it was a Denver game. It was because even though they had a break, the ankle needs time. Like, and it's like, I think he jammed the ankle, so it's not like a roll.
Yeah.
So he keeps having issues with it, and he's playing on a bum wheel, and he's playing 38 minutes a night on a bum wheel. And so there is no recovery for what's going on yet.
Right.
And they're trying to figure it out, and hopefully he's able to recover quick. But it's why you need to have more depth at that position. And even if you had Keegan Murray ready and available, like, he would have got in foul trouble last night against Paul George. Paul George is a great player.
Sure.
And even at his age, he still can cook.
Yeah.
And we saw it. And even if you had Keegan Murray to defend him, you still would have liked to have had another one to go defend Tyrese Maxey.
If you trade Keegan for Cam Johnson, we're gonna have this exact same conversation about wing depth and size and athleticism issues on the perimeter with Cam Johnson in for Keegan Murray.
Yeah, then we would say we need more Cam Johnsons.
Right. Yeah.
Not
we need
less
a Keegan
Cam
Murray
Johnsons.
type. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, but just to rewind real quick.
Yeah.
To TC's point, if a star level player is available, or if the Rockets are hesitant to give up Tari Eason, I don't know. I'm not in Houston. I don't know. But let's say they're ready with the De'Aaron Fox deal, and it's like, you know what? We need Keegan Murray too, and we'll include these two other players, or whatever it is. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with this on the fly, and it's not working. But you get it. If you think that including him is going to, or trading him is going to land you multiple players who, I don't know. What am I trying to say? Help me out, James. I talked myself into a ditch.
Okay, so if you're dealing with,
I don't think Keegan Murray can be off the table.
No,
in trade talks. There we go.
No, I get
Wasn't
that.
that hard, Kyle?
I get that, but
out.
He's a young player that you don't want to give up now, and you also have to look at the impact that, like, a player like DeMar DeRozan has had on Keegan Murray. And it's not that DeMar DeRozan has intentionally done something like angry to Keegan Murray. It's just that his presence, what he brings to the table, does impact the way that Keegan plays. And when you add that to the fact that he's playing incredible defense on the toughest cover on the opposition, that's another thing. When you factor in that you had to put Malik Monk in the starting lineup instead of Keon Ellis, where Keon Ellis could have taken some pressure. We talked about it then. Could have taken some defensive pressure off of Keegan Murray. You didn't. That didn't last long, and you had to make a move, and it was sort of the act of desperation by Mike Brown. It was his last bullet in the gun, right? And so you have all of these pieces, but, like, look, you have to wait out Keegan Murray a little bit longer. You can't.
I agree.
You have to look at, like, it's situational. Basketball is so situational for players. Like, they look great in one spot, and they look great. They look horrible in another. Cam Johnson could get traded to the Sacramento Kings, And lo and behold, he's averaging 12 points per game again. He's shooting 42% from three, but he's only averaging 12 points per game because that's the opportunity there. Like, just because Cam Johnson walks in the door, who's never been a guy who demands the ball, doesn't mean he's going to get the same opportunity that he had in Brooklyn.
Right.
And then if you were to say, hey, you trade Kevin Huerter to Brooklyn, all of a sudden Kevin Huerter's averaging 15 points a game again. Everyone's like, what in the world? Like, how did that happen? It's like, okay, well, Kevin Huerter has a lot more opportunity playing for a team like Brooklyn that needs more scores than a team like the Kings that doesn't have this massive need for scores.
Yeah, the thing that jumps out for me with Cam Johnson specifically is at 43.2% from three. And he's a good defender.
Yeah.
And that's where, let's take Keegan Murray out of this discussion for a second. That's where, to me, I'm comfortably giving up, not whatever Brooklyn asked for. You're not going to give them whatever. But it's why I think if you're plugging him in next to Keegan Murray, is he going to average 19 a night like he is right now? No. But that's a good defender who you know is going to be a knockdown three-point shooter. He's 39.7% for his career.
Yep.
And that's like the exact type of player to me that would help the Kings a lot. But on the other hand, if you're giving up, I don't know, if you're giving up Keegan Murray to make that deal, I don't think that makes you better.
No.
But if it's Devin Carter and what second round pick do they have? 2029?
Yeah.
And your 2029 second, and then
cap filler would be like Kevin Huerter probably gets it done.
Sure. And Kevin Huerter?
Yeah.
That's a no-brainer deal for me.
Yeah.
Because I think that makes them exponentially better.
Well, that's what you're hoping, that you're finding a player that fits in and makes a big difference. And like, look, I think one of the biggest aspects that people are missing about this current Kings team is that they don't have, they're not switchable.
Yep.
And that's something that, look at the great teams in the league, switchability. Look at the Boston Celtics are probably 1 through 4 is able to switch all the time, and sometimes 1 through 5. But 1 through 4, they can switch from one spot to the next. Everybody can defend. Everybody can play against. They can play up. They can play down. You're like, okay, look, that's modern basketball. When you signed DeMar DeRozan, who at 35 is not a great defender, but he's also not a switchable defender. So you have Keegan Murray. Hey, Keegan, I'm going to need you to shut that faucet off. Hey, I'm going to need you to go shut that faucet off. There isn't this rotation that you can have, and teams can find a way. Good teams know how to get the switch, which is why everyone goes, hey, how come they're always picking on Kevin Huerter? Because they just kept switching until they got to Kevin Huerter and then sent a 6'9" Paul George at Kevin Huerter. It's a bad matchup, but that's the NBA. So if you had this switchability now, you can hide, you can mask a lot of other things. And look, it's not just one thing the Kings need. The Kings need that, and they need a shot blocker.
Yeah.
Like straight up. I mean, Alex Lynn is a good dude and he's doing his best out there, but you can see the limitations as a backup center. So they have multiple needs.
Yeah, no doubt. Hoops Habit had a bunch of Kings trade ideas.
Yeah.
Can we roll through some of those right now?
Yeah.
And give a thumbs up or thumbs down?
Okay.
Because my favorite thing is insane trades involving star players.
Yeah.
So what we were talking to De'Aaron Fox earlier, and De'Aaron Fox is not asked out, but his name, because he's a good player, there's a really good representation, right, of how good De'Aaron Fox is. Not in all-star nods, as we know, and not in all-pro nods, as we know. But the fact that his name even got floated, it makes its way into the trade-sphere a little bit, and all of a sudden, everybody wants their favorite team to trade for De'Aaron Fox.
Well, even the way they preface this, it's that, De'Aaron Fox, his name has been mentioned in trade rumors, so let's come up with 5 deals that will make
his name has been mentioned on the internet.
Yes. Name mention. Let's go.
All right. What's the first one? And again, these are De'Aaron Fox trade scenarios via Hoops Habit.
The first trade that I think that I see is Keldon Johnson, De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs for Keldon Johnson, Stephon Castle, Trey Jones, 2025 Chicago Bulls protected first, a 2027 Atlanta Hawks pick, and the pick swap from the Kings, the 2031 pick swap, would just be canceled.
Thumbs down for me.
No, it's thumbs down because like Stephon Castle, I
did not realize how bad he is at shooting the basketball.
Yeah, he does not project to me as a frontline NBA starter.
No.
And people can fight me on that, but when I watch him play, I don't think that guy has a chance to score 26 points per game. And if you're giving up De'Aaron Fox for a young talent, like Keldon Johnson is who he is, Trey Jones is who he is, and those first round picks are too far off. Mm-hmm. I just don't think that Castle's a guy that I look at and say, oh, he's going to be equal to or greater than De'Aaron Fox down the road, or he's going to even become remotely close to the same stratosphere as De'Aaron Fox.
I think the intriguing thing for me with him would be how does he develop in a role where he's, again, because we talk about if you're trading De'Aaron Fox, it's not to necessarily rebuild. Mm-hmm. It's just shifting your core to, okay, he's no longer in the core. Now it's Malik Monk, Domantas Sabonis, Keegan Murray. And now you're plugging Stephon Castle into that group. Mm-hmm. Because right now the Spurs are like, hey, can you be a lead guard? And that's what it's him and Chris Paul and Victor Wembanyama. And they want him and Wembanyama to be that 1-2 in the front court and the back court.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't necessarily be that in Sacramento. But if he's not knocking down threes, I don't know what value he really has.
Yeah, I'm just like, as a prospect, I think he's good. I don't think he's great.
Sure. What else we got?
The next trade they had was, let's see. Where is this trade? It's to the Rockets, right?
Yes. It was Reed Shepherd.
Oh, Cam Johnson, Cam Whitmore, Fred VanVleet, and 3 first-round picks.
Ugh. No thanks.
No, like Fred VanVleet.
I feel like you can get more from the Rockets for that.
Yeah, Fred VanVleet's an expiring contract. And the reason why we're doing this exercise is because, look, the Kings aren't, in my opinion, they're not looking to trade. There's the trade. Now I see it. They're not looking to trade Fox for 3 first-round picks and start over.
Mm-hmm.
That's just not what they're looking to do.
Right.
So, like, that's taking such a huge step back, and I guess having assets is one thing, but like you're not trading Fox for assets so you can go trade those assets to go get another player. It's just too tough.
Damian Barling in the building for the handoff. What's up, man?
Hey guys,
I love your sunglasses. Those are great.
I was gonna say, when did you stop coaching the Miami Dolphins?
Nice.
Okay.
Today with the sunnies and the gray hoodie, you got the Mike McDaniel thing going.
Thank you. I'm a big fan of Mike McDaniel. I actually just realized that this is a great way to come back to work. I left all of my blue blockers, my in-ear monitors. They're all up in the home studio upstairs.
Oh, good.
Because we had to do 2 shows because the Kings hate Jesus and multiple television appearances.
You heard it here first.
I just left everything upstairs.
Oh, okay.
I forgot that. Hey, dumbass, you have a job to do.
Are you going to use normal headphones like these today? Can't wait.
Yes,
it's gonna mess your hair up.
It's gonna be pretty. Yeah.
Oh, man. Are you wearing sunglasses for the whole show too?
Probably.
You want to use my glasses? That's weird. Don't use my glasses.
They'll keep my. I'll try. I'll see how it goes. I'd wear those blue blockers to keep. They legitimately keep my head from hurting.
Yeah, same.
These are a little darker than what I'm used to wearing, and I don't think there's any like screen protection in them. So I'll try it.
Okay.
And then if I just have to tap out, I'll tap out.
Okay.
All right.
It fits the ethos of the show though, with the sunnies on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No, normally I have most of my glasses are lighter framed. Of course, today I wore the one dark framed glass.
Naturally,
glasses,
as we were wont to do.
As I'm talking to Karosh and like, hey, where are my headphones? Where are my glasses? Upstairs.
And you realize it with like not enough time to get home. It would have been.
I
would have been tight.
Might have, but it
close.
would have been like, hey, Casey, be ready.
Yeah.
Like, and it doesn't feel worth it to me. Like I have my KSFM headphones are here.
Sure. Yeah. I know you guys are going to talk a lot about the Kings and Doug Christie and Mike Brown, etc. Coming up on D'Lo and Casey. Would you like to open your Christmas present for me right now? I didn't wrap it.
Oh,
you can just have it.
I'd love that.
I left it in the box that it got shipped in. Here you go, man. Merry Christmas.
This spectacularly looks like vinyl.
What are you talking about?
Oh, I love it.
What are you talking about? I hope you don't have it. I know you don't have one for sure.
I hope
you might have the other one though.
Sabrina Carpenter.
I didn't even put tape on it, as you can see there.
All right, what do we got here to add to the collection?
Here we go.
Okay.
Okay, look. No, you're laughing about this.
Yep.
It's fire.
Yeah, no,
It's
tell everyone
Disney
what
songs.
it is. Yep.
It's lo-fi mini focus. It's Disney songs done in like lo-fi beat style.
Yep.
Extremely vibey.
Mhm.
You're gonna love it. And as you become more of a Disney adult,
Yeah,
you're
facts.
gonna learn to appreciate that vinyl a lot more. In fact, you're gonna appreciate it without knowing a lot of the songs.
There it is.
The first one is Hakuna Matata.
Obviously, I know that. I do.
Let It Go, banger.
I don't think Let It Go is on here.
Is it not?
I don't think so. Under the Sea is on here. You've Got a Friend in Me is on here. I Just Can't Wait to Be King.
Yeah.
I know all those. Almost
There's a Coco song on there.
A Whole New World.
I think Let It Go is on the other
Into the
one.
Unknown.
Into the Unknown, not Let It Go. Into the Unknown.
And then from the musical, Lion King.
Do you have that already?
I don't.
Oh, okay, good.
No, I don't.
All right.
I have the entire Taylor Swift Taylor's version vinyl collection, but I don't have
You
this.
didn't have the Lion King.
So I'm excited to have the Lion King.
Salute.
This is big.
Great.
I did watch
That's the original Broadway cast performance. It's not the Disney Lion King.
No, for sure. I saw this.
Okay.
This was the first ever The Lion King was the first ever play, the first ever musical I saw on Broadway.
Oh, nice.
The very first one.
Very nice.
I think it went musical. I think it went Lion King, Jersey Boys, and then Wicked. And Wicked to this day is still my favorite.
Wicked's incredible.
And I watched, as James is aware, I watched the movie over the break.
Why is James aware?
Well, he called me. He was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm watching Wicked."
Oh,
You answered in the movie theater?
It's on digital, so I was watching it at home.
Oh, got it. Okay.
yeah,
cool.
we had a quick discussion on a very complicated matter, which we're not going to talk about on the air, which you and I had right before that.
I was going to say, he calls me and he's like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm at Chili's."
I forgot. He was at Chili's.
I heard
I'm like,
about the big Chili's New Year's.
You're at
extravaganza.
Chili's with your boys. I forgot.
great.
Well, I'll be quick. Let me tell you. Oh my gosh, this
Yeah.
is crazy.
Yeah.
And then we moved on.
It was one of those things where the whole time you're talking, I have my finger on the volume button, turning it down,
Yeah,
just to make sure that it's not
Oh yeah.
anyways.
out there for
Yeah.
everybody.
Went to Chili's with the homies to watch some college football, as one does, and wouldn't let us sit in the bar. They were like, "You can only sit in the bar if you can find a bar seat."
Tabletop.
And there were three of us. If you're at Chili's on New Year's Eve day, you're locked in.
Oh yeah,
You're in
yeah.
for the long
oh
haul.
yeah.
People aren't getting up and moving very often. So we waited 10 minutes for a table, and we're sitting there waiting. They don't sit us in the bar. They sit us in general dining, which is even more hilarious that Baylor LSU is on the TV way the hell over there. And then we had Louisville, Washington right above us that only I could see. Neither of my buddies could see that. They were forced to watch the LSU Baylor blowout. Anyways, I order a drink. It was like a vodka lemonade. Lady goes, "Great." She comes back. My buddies ordered Coronas. She sets down warm Coronas. Those things were not even cold to the touch.
They just pulled them out of the box.
Just straight out the box. Warm
Oh,
Coronas. Slapped a lime in the top and said, "Here you go, enjoy." She comes back. She goes, "Hey, we're out of the vodka lemonade. We don't have it." And I was like, "Bet, no worries. I'll take a Modelo." She goes, "Don't have it." You don't have
What?
Modelo
Ma'am, you're Chili's.
at Chili's? I thought this is where they made Modelo. What is this?
What do you have? What did they have? What did you wind up
She
ordering?
She goes, "I have Miller Lite, Bud Light, Coors Light, da 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 da," and nothing I particularly wanted.
right.
So I ordered a Bud Light and dealt with it. It was
Oh,
better than a warm Corona, maybe.
you couldn't
That's
just
Maybe.
fine.
couldn't gone like
And
a
then we
rum
had
and Coke or
some-
something. Or
some
did they not have rum?
I
or
don't.
did they
I
not
don't.
have
I don't
Coke?
do Coke. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or Coca Cola.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Mike McDaniel's over here.
Yeah,
If you
boy.
need it.
All right.
There we
All
go.
right.
There we go.
Leave Mike McDaniel's alone.
No S. Mike McDaniel.
Mike McDaniel.
Debo Samuel. Mike
Those-
McDaniel.
Yeah.
Josh McDaniels.
Josh McDaniel's correct.
Yeah. Thoughts on the Kings last night?
I thought that was one of the better wins at the Golden One Center, if not the best.
This year?
Yeah.
Mhm.
The reaction from the crowd, James, you speak to this, but I mean, at least from a TV perspective, when De'Aaron hit the shot at the halftime,
Mm.
it
Mhm.
was like, oh, there's life.
Mhm.
Okay. There's the Golden One Center. Okay. All right. Of course, the third quarter sucked. but they came out and they had a strong fourth quarter. I think I think if there's a win, if there's a style of play that you can point to and go, maybe that's the identity of Doug Christie, it was that. Like, I never questioned whether they wanted to win that game. I never questioned how hard they were playing. I never questioned whether they settled on anything. Like, they worked their ass off that entire game. And when shots weren't falling, like, the three continues to not fall for them. But I thought that was a really, really great win for them yesterday. And I didn't think much after they beat Dallas for obvious reasons with Luka and all of those guys being out. But even with Embiid out, you had Paul George playing the way that he was, Tyrese Maxey, all-star level that he's playing at. And I was like, hey, I didn't think the Dallas win could mean anything. It was like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
This could, if you're looking for something, I think that win last night could be something you build upon. And I love the picture, that they took last night and the accompanying video in front of the beam. I thought that was spectacular. That was really, really great stuff from DC.
Baby steps.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dallas was a baby step. This was a baby step.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's
going
to
get
get more
fight.
difficult.
Yeah, you got to fight tomorrow though.
Yeah.
Well, no jaw, but we'll see.
No, they still play.
Yeah, they're tough.
Well, that's
they
a
still
team
play.
that plays from start to finish. They don't give in.
And that's what you want, right? Like, they play for Taylor Jenkins, whether we like it or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I want for the Sacramento Kings and Doug Christie. Like, play. Don't look like you did against Indiana. Like, play.
Yeah.
And I don't know how anyone could not want to play for Doug Christie.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, approaching it very differently than Mike Brown. We talked about that a lot. I'm sure you and Kenny are going to talk about that. What do you guys got coming up?
A lot of. So there's no Uncle Nearest, there's no whiskey, there's no bourbon. There's going to be slow, measured thoughts, right? Because we're back on the radio on what went on while we were away with Mike Brown, and then of course we'll talk a lot about the last two games, because I don't think the last two games should be discounted. You don't have to be overly excited about them, but I don't think you should discount them either, especially the one last night.
Right there with you. That's Damian Barling, D-Lo, and KC. Coming up next, he's James Ham. I'm Kyle Madsen. Jiffy Lube has been the sponsor of the program. We're the Insiders, and we are back with you tomorrow at 10 a.m. right here on ESPN 1320, Sacramento Sports Leader. Until then, drink water and be nice to people. See you.